Hello, it's just David here with my weekly message. In the Screwtape Letters, a book by C.S. Lewis, it's an imaginary set of letters, you may have come across it, in which it imagines a junior devil who's been given the job of tempting somebody, and he's writing to his uncle, who's a very senior devil. And the junior devil isn't doing very well. It's a sort of funny book, but with serious points, written, as I say, by C.S. Lewis, the guy who wrote the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Anyway, in it, the senior devil describes human beings as monstrous hybrids, and says that the creation of these monstrous hybrids, that's us, is one of the reasons that he started his rebellion against God. As I say, it's supposed to be a funny book, written slightly tongue-in-cheek, but with a serious point to it. What does it mean by monstrous hybrids? Well, it means that we are two things, if you like. We have a physical body, flesh and blood, if you like, but also we're spiritual beings. We have a soul, if you like, something that isn't, we don't think of being built out of physical stuff. I mean, today we might talk about a personality, I suppose. But, traditionally we've talked about a soul or a spirit and being spiritual beings. And what he's saying is that, there are things which are purely physical and in a sense, most of the sort of animals are kind of like that. They're, fairly predictable in their behavior. It's a kind of, how they're going to be, what's going to sort of be their state. And then there are sort of spiritual beings, but sort of means angels in heaven, really, who sort of float around on clouds in popular representation. They really don't float around at all. And human beings are kind of stuck in the middle. Whoever it was who says, we live in the gutter but look up to the stars, is right, that we are physical beings, but also we have a spirit and soul that kind of goes beyond what we are. The reason I say all this is because I think it's one of the sort of clues to sort of Lent, really. And I think the important words in C.S. Lewis is hybrid, and it's the relationship between those two things, really, that I think philosophers have struggled with. Because if you look at, I don't want to be so, but there's a whole kind of Western tradition from Plato, which goes through sort of Immanuel Kant and some present day, that says, basically these are two separate things, that we are bodies and we are souls. And really, the key is just to sort of ignore your body and just become a very good and pure soul. And you can see kind of why that's quite attractive to people, and indeed to Christians, that just concentrate on your soul. Don't worry too much about your body. But in other sort of cultures, particularly in sort of Jewish thought, and particularly in non-Western thought, whether they use the words body and soul, I don't know. But actually, one of the things I realise is that you can't really sort of divide them so easily, that we are this hybrid. And I mean, a very simple thing is that, how we are as sort of souls, if you like, how we are spiritually is so much affected by the state of our bodies. I mean, quite, if you're tired, if you're hungry, if you're, worn out, then that's going to reflect how you are as a person. Now, sometimes we can kind of overcome those things, but generally we know that's when we're not at our best. When, we've had a decent meal and, a good rest and, feeling fairly fit and things in our bodies, then we tend to have a much sort of better, jollier outlook on life. Now, that's a very obvious thing, but it does show that, we can't just say, well, ignore how we are in our bodies, our souls must be different. We're very dependent for how we sort of feel mentally and emotionally on our bodies. We have to sort of look after them. And of course, we know that. I mean, in the mental health world, of course, which is very much in the news at the moment, we know that part of that, is to encourage people, if you look after your body, likelihood of, okay, it's not the sort of panacea, but likelihood that if your body's in fairly good shape mentally, you're likely to at least be in better shape than you would be. And we also know that if we kind of not terribly fit, don't look after our bodies very much, then the likelihood is that also with that our sort of mental health will deteriorate as well. And I think that's a sort of clue to Lent really sometimes, because people talk about perhaps giving something up or taking something up, and it's often an outward thing. I'm going to give up chocolate or take up running or something like that. And I suppose Christians always start thinking, well, what difference will that make to me inside? Will it make me more prayerful, more spiritual, more kind to other people or whatever? And of course, in a sense, it won't. If I give up chocolate, I'm not necessarily going to think of the poor and hungry about the world and decide to help them. If I sort of book gym membership, I'm not going to particularly necessarily pray for those who are physically unwell or disabled in some way. But on the other hand, I might. I think that's the thing, and I think that's the link that we want to make. That in doing these things, and they're quite sort of minor things, but perhaps in making a bit more of an effort to give up something more, or to do something a bit kind of more than a token thing. Actually, it will sort of make us think and consider. What would it be like if I wasn't fit enough to go to the gym, and what does that mean for some people? What does it mean if I didn't have really enough food around and I was sort of constantly, hungry, and what can we do about it? So I think, Lent does seem to be sometimes a sort of Lenten devotion seem to be about sort of physical things of stuffing yourself with pancakes and putting ash on your head and giving up some, something, and then taking up something else, and perhaps when you get to Holy Week, intensifying that a bit. It can seem to be all a bit physical, but I think because we are hybrids, as C.S. Lewis points out, actually that does affect how we are, and hopefully it will just, as I say, make us think. Maybe, as I say, maybe we won't keep a terribly strict Lenten fast, but things like we're having one of the super soup lunches for Christian Aid. And of course, the idea of that, I mean, it's good. It raises some money. It raises awareness, and nobody's going to starve because they have soup and cheese for lunch. In fact, I rather look forward to it because it's actually rather a good lunch. But the point of that, which is a very, very good thing, I mean, the most important thing is that it makes us think. It makes us stop and think. And actually, if we're having a slightly, less calorific meal than we normally have, I mean, what would it be like to do this day by day? And maybe, take the cheese away and just leave the soup. What would that be like if it was just day after day after day? The point is, yeah, by doing those sort of physical things, it makes us consider, perhaps makes us more prayerful, more kind, and all the rest of it, because in the end we are, dare I say it, monstrous hybrids. Thank you.